The final warning. The council hall of Zareth Prime was large and filled with alien leaders. Their skin shone with silver scales, their eyes cold like ice. They sat on high chairs, looking down at the human standing in the center. He was alone, no guards, no weapons, just calm eyes and quiet strength. His name was Darren Hale. He wore a worn black jacket, dusty boots, and had a small datapad in his hand. Behind him, the heavy metal doors closed with a deep sound. The room went silent. "This is your final warning," Darren said in a soft voice. Some of the council members laughed. A few leaned forward, curious. One of them, Lord Vurek, the war leader, sneered. "You humans talk too much. Always peace this, peace that. Where is your army now, little man?" he said. Darren looked around the room. "I came alone because I hoped you had reason left. Your people invaded 3 human colonies. You killed civilians. You took prisoners. I asked you before to stop this war, and we refused," another counselor said, smiling. "What now, human? Will you cry?" From the shadows of the room, a young alien girl watched silently. Her name was Lyra. She was the daughter of one of the minor nobles, too young to speak in the council but smart enough to understand what was happening. She had seen humans only in reports and on screens. They always looked scared, running, weak. But this one was different. Darren's eyes met hers for a brief second. He didn't blink. "I gave your empire every chance," Darren said, looking back at the council. "I gave you truth, I gave you facts, I gave you time. You answered with blood." A soft hum filled the room as the council's recording devices activated. They were keeping his words, maybe for proof, maybe for fun. "So what happens now?" Lord Vurek mocked. "Will you send another warning?" "No," Darren replied simply. "There will be no more warnings." His words were quiet, but they hit like a hammer. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. The air felt heavier. It was like the room had changed. Colder. Quieter. "You humans are alone," another leader said. "You don't have the power to touch us." Darren stepped forward once. Just one step. "You think we are alone because you see only the surface. You think we are weak because we stayed silent. You think you won because we didn't strike back." He paused, looked at each of them. "But silence is not weakness, it is choice." The laughter stopped. "What are you saying?" one counselor asked, his voice no longer calm. "I'm saying your time is over," Darren said. "Not because we hate you, not because we want your lands, but because you didn't listen." He turned to leave. The guards didn't stop him. They were too confused. As he reached the door, he spoke one last time without turning back. "Look to the skies." And then he walked out. The council chamber was silent. Even Lord Vurek had no words. Lyra's hands were cold. She looked at her father, but even he was pale. "He's bluffing," someone said. "He's just one man," another whispered. But deep in her heart, Lyra wasn't sure. She had seen something in that human's eyes, not fear, not anger. It was something far worse. It was resolve. She had seen many warriors. Her people loved battle. They screamed, they shouted, they roared. But Darren didn't roar. He didn't scream. He warned. And now, he had stopped warning. That night, as the stars rose over Zareth Prime, Lyra stood on her balcony. She looked up at the sky. Her heart beat faster. A strange wind passed over the city. The lights flickered for a moment, and high above, something moved. A shadow, large and silent, passed across the moon. And Lyra, the young alien girl who had laughed at humans, suddenly trembled when the skies burned. The next morning, the city of Zareth Prime woke to a strange silence. Birds did not sing. The winds did not blow. Even the machines that hummed across the building seemed quieter than usual. Lyra stood at her window, still thinking about the human named Darren. His last words echoed in her mind. "Look to the skies," It was just one sentence, but it felt like a heavy stone inside her chest. She didn't know why, but something deep inside her told her the world had changed. In the grand hall, the council met again, laughing off yesterday's warning. It was a performance, Lord Vurek said, smirking. A sad one. The humans have no power, just empty words. But before he could finish, a low rumble rolled through the walls. Not thunder, not quakes. Something else. The walls trembled. Lights blinked. The counselors looked at each other. Then, a guard rushed in, his face pale. "You need to see this," he said. They followed him outside onto the sky bridge above the tower. And when they looked up, everything changed. The sky was filled. Ships, black, massive, endless. Human dreadnoughts stretched across the horizon. They came in silence, blocking the sun, casting shadows across the entire capital. No music, no message, no warning, just silence. Lyra stepped out behind her father, her legs shaking. She had never seen anything like this. No one had. What is this?" One of the leaders whispered. A voice crackled through the air. Not loud, not angry, just firm. "This is the response." It was Darren's voice, and then the fire began. One by one, human ships released beams of white light, clean, sharp, surgical. They did not target civilians. They did not destroy homes. They hit military bases, weapons silos, command centers, with perfect precision. Alien cannons tried to shoot back, but they were too slow. Defense turrets turned on, and then exploded. Everything the Empire built for war, everything they bragged about for years, was falling apart in minutes. Lord Vurek screamed orders, but the command center was already gone. Alien generals tried to send signals. No one replied. In less than an hour, the Empire's defense grid, the pride of their people, was gone. Burned. Silent. Dead. And still, the human fleet did not stop. In the lower city, Lyra saw people running, families searching for safety. Her mother pulled her inside their shelter, but Lyra stopped at the entrance. She looked up again. A single ship had broken from the fleet, larger than any vessel she had seen before. It was not smooth or beautiful, like alien ships. It was ugly, it was heavy. It looked like a monster of metal. It hovered above the palace, and slowly, it descended. As it came down, it released nothing. No weapons, no soldiers, just one platform, and one man standing on it. Darren. His coat waved in the cold wind. Smoke curled around him from the destroyed towers behind. His face was calm, but his eyes were fire. Alien guards aimed their weapons at him, but they didn't shoot. Their hands trembled. No one moved. Darren walked alone through the ruins of the palace gates. Dust and ash fell around him like snow. He passed the statues of alien emperors without a single glance. Lyra followed from a distance, hiding behind debris. She didn't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fear. Maybe both. Darren reached the steps of the Emperor's chamber. 2 guards blocked the way. "Leave," Darren said. The guards looked at each other, and then dropped their weapons. They walked away in silence. Lyra gasped. This wasn't war anymore. This was something else. Something older. Deeper. Unstoppable. Darren climbed the steps. Each step echoed like thunder. Inside the chamber, the Emperor waited. Old. Proud. Broken. "You have made your point, human," the Emperor said, shaking. "What do you want?" Darren said nothing. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small sphere. He placed it on the floor. It projected images, videos, evidence, alien crimes, tortured humans, burned cities, experiments on children. Lyra saw it all from the shadows. Her hands covered her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. "I offered you peace," Darren said. "You chose pain." The Emperor fell to his knees. "What happens now?" he whispered. Darren looked at him, not with hate, but with cold judgment. Now, you learn. As Darren turned to leave the chamber, explosions began in the distance, not from humans but from within the alien empire itself, uprisings, panic, fear. And behind him, Lyra stood frozen, her body trembling. Not from the cold, but from the truth. The silence before the storm, the city was in chaos, but Darren walked through it like a ghost. Fires burned across the skyline. Alien soldiers had dropped their weapons. Sirens cried in the distance. Civilians screamed, not knowing where to go, or who to trust. But Darren didn't speak. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than war. On the rooftops, Lyra followed him, hidden, breathless, shaken. Her heart had not stopped pounding since the sky turned dark. She didn't understand this human. He had come with the power to crush their world, yet he moved like a man with sorrow in his chest. He passed the broken statues of alien heroes. He passed the flags now torn and covered in smoke. Every step he took seemed to pull the ground into stillness. And still, no one dared stop him. In the Empire's outer districts, soldiers gathered, not to fight, but to surrender. Some dropped to their knees when they saw human drones flying overhead. Others simply walked into the streets, hands raised, weapons thrown to the dirt. They had seen what the humans could do. They had felt what it meant when patience ends. But not everyone accepted it. Deep inside the capital, in a black tower once, used for military strategy, a rogue general named Zorak activated a last resort device. It was called Project Silence, a superweapon buried under the capital. It was meant to destroy invaders from the inside. If we die, Zorak growled. They die with us. He pressed the code, but nothing happened. On the other side of the city, Darren stopped walking. He looked up, his eyes distant, focused. They tried to activate it, he said softly, speaking to no one. Behind him, a human soldier in sleek armor stepped out of the shadows. Do you want us to disable it, Commander? The soldier asked. Darren shook his head. No, he said. They already did. At that moment, every screen in the city turned on. Massive displays flickered to life. Every wall, every tower, every marketplace, one image. A silent feed from a human satellite. Zorak's tower. His face filled the screen, panicking, screaming at the controls, hitting them again and again. Behind him, human code flowed across, the screens like waves. Project Silence had been hijacked, by humans, by Darren. The city watched in stunned silence as Zorak fell to the floor, broken and afraid. And then the screen cut off. Only one line remained. You built weapons. We built warnings. Lyra covered her mouth. She couldn't breathe. She realized something horrifying. Darren had not just come prepared for war. He had been ready for everything. Far beneath the city, in an ancient underground prison, a place even Lyra didn't know existed, Darren arrived at a sealed door. It was quiet here. Too quiet. 2 human soldiers stood guard. They stepped aside as Darren approached. Inside, the air was cold. The walls were old. This place had not been touched in years, but the smell of blood was fresh. Human prisoners, scientists, workers, children, were locked inside rusted cages. Some looked too weak to stand. Others simply stared with blank eyes. Darren knelt beside one of them, a young boy no older than 8. The boy looked up, saw the human armor, and flinched. Darren took off his helmet. You're safe now, he said gently. The boy blinked, then slowly reached out. Darren wrapped him in his coat and picked him up. The room was filled with silence and shaking hearts. Lyra had followed him. She stayed in the shadows again, too ashamed to speak. But she needed to know. She stepped out. Why, didn't you destroy us all? She asked, her voice trembling. Darren turned. His eyes found hers. Because destruction is easy, he said. But justice is harder. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had lived her whole life thinking her people were superior, stronger, smarter, untouchable. But now, the most dangerous man she had ever seen was a human who refused to kill needlessly. "What will happen now?" she asked. Darren looked down at the child in his arms. "Now they go home," he said. And then he walked past her, leaving behind nothing but silence. As Darren's ship rose into the sky with the freed prisoners, the alien empire stood broken, not by bombs, but by truth. And Lyra, the alien girl who once thought humans were weak, now knew the truth. They were strong enough to destroy the galaxy, but wise enough to walk away. The girl who followed. The fires in Zareth Prime were dying now, but the fear remained. Alien leaders had vanished. Their towers stood cracked and empty. Soldiers had thrown away their ranks and armor. Some had gone into hiding. Others simply sat in the streets waiting for orders that would never come. But one girl was still moving. Lyra, while others ran from the human known as Darren Hale, she followed him, not with courage, not with hope, but with questions too loud to ignore. Why had he shown mercy? Why didn't he take revenge when he had the power to end them all? And why? Did his silence shake her more than all the explosions combined? She wore a simple cloak to hide her noble blood. No guards, no family. She slipped between the ruins, past human patrols, past alien refugees, heading toward the landing field where his ship had vanished into the clouds. But as she reached the edge of the old city wall, she saw it. A human outpost had been built overnight. Silent machines moved supplies. Drones scanned the skies. Armored soldiers guarded every corner, and in the center stood him, Darren. He was talking to a young girl, one of the prisoners he had rescued. He knelt beside her, tying a ribbon into her hair. His face was calm, soft, nothing like the man who had faced down an empire. Lyra hid behind a broken wall, watching. How can someone be so dangerous? And still so kind, she thought. She stepped forward. A stick cracked beneath her foot. Darren stood instantly, his eyes locked on her hiding spot. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't call for guards. He simply said, "You've been following me since the palace." Lyra stepped out slowly. I had to," she said. "I don't understand you." "Most of your leaders didn't," he replied. "And now they're gone. But I'm not like them," she said quickly. "I didn't want war. Did you stop it?" he asked. Lyra froze. Her voice failed her. Darren turned away, but Lyra stepped closer. "Please," she said. "Teach me." He looked back, confused. "Teach? You what? Why you didn't kill us?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded to a nearby transport. "Walk with me." They moved through the camp. Human tech buzzed quietly. Medics treated alien children. Soldiers passed food to starving families. No hatred, no pride, just quiet hands doing the work. "We were never the monsters," Darren said. "We asked for peace because we believed in balance. And when that failed, we made sure no one could ignore us again." He showed her a tablet. On it, reports. Years of messages sent to the alien empire. Warnings. Proof. Pleas. All ignored. All mocked. "We warned them too many times," he said. "They thought silence meant fear. But silence can be a storm." Lyra looked at the screen, her heart twisting. "I'm sorry." "It's not me you owe," Darren said. "It's them." He pointed to the humans sitting in the shadows. The scarred, the broken, the ones who had lost homes, families, everything. And yet, they were helping. Lyra didn't speak. Her whole life she had believed humans were simple creatures, weak, loud, emotional. Now she saw truth. They were wounded, but not weak. They were angry, but still chose mercy. And Darren was the blade. They kept hidden. He led her to a small tent outside the camp. Inside, files, maps, and a strange weapon glowed on a table. "What is this?" she asked. "What your empire was building in secret," he said. A world breaker. Something that could turn planets to ash. Her hands shook. Why show me this? Because you're not a soldier, Darren said. You're someone who can still change. Lyra stepped back, fear on her face. What if I fail? Darren's voice was calm. Then more will follow, and we'll face them too. That night, Lyra sat outside the human outpost, staring at the stars. Above her, more ships arrived, not to fight, but to rebuild. And beside her, a data crystal Darren had handed her. His voice echoed in her. Mind, if your people want peace, bring this to your emperor. If not, you won't see me coming next time. The truth he carried, simple English, third-person style, no capital letters, more unique, longer, emotional, suspenseful, powerful. The data crystal felt heavier than stone in Lyra's hands. She sat alone inside the human tent, surrounded by strange machines and glowing maps. The crystal was small, smooth, cold, almost delicate, but Darren's voice had made it clear. Inside it was truth powerful enough to break empires, and he had given it to her. Not a general, not a noble, not a leader, but her. A girl from a broken house, raised on lies, too young to stop the war and too ashamed to speak during it. Why me? She whispered. A voice answered behind her. Because you still ask questions. She turned. Darren stood at the entrance of the tent, eyes sharp, face unreadable. He stepped inside and placed a cup of warm liquid beside her. Drink, he said. She hesitated. He didn't push. You think I'm poisoning you? He asked. I don't know what to think anymore, she replied. Good, he said. That means you're finally thinking. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, human engineers worked through the night, rebuilding roads and shelters. Drones buzzed softly in the sky. No one shouted, no one celebrated. It was quiet. Too quiet. What's inside the crystal? Lyra asked. Darren didn't answer right away. Then he said, everything. Later that night, inside a secure human briefing room, he placed the crystal in a projector. Watch, he told her. What she saw first made her jaw tighten. A hidden camera feed. Human colonists kneeling before alien soldiers. A mother shielding her child as energy whips cracked. Overhead, an elderly man dragged across a floor. Screams. Your empire said these were lies, Darren said. They were truth. The next file showed medical labs, cages, experiments. Children tested like animals. A boy injected with something blue. A girl strapped to a table, too weak to cry. Lyra turned her face away. Darren paused the video. Your empire called this peacekeeping, he said. Stop, she said, voice breaking. Please. No, he said. You asked why I didn't destroy your world. This is why. He resumed the footage. Human soldiers storming into alien facilities, finding survivors. Some cheered, some cried, some were already too late to save. We didn't come for revenge, Darren said. We came for them. Lyra's tears ran freely now. She couldn't speak. After the files ended, Darren stood up. He pulled a small photo from his pocket. A young girl smiled back. Freckles, dark hair, bright eyes. This was my sister, he said. She was on Euron 3 when your empire attacked. She was 7. Lyra looked at him. What happened to her? He didn't blink. I don't know. The way he said it, so quiet, so steady, was worse than any scream. They never found her body. Maybe she died when the sky burned. Maybe she was taken. Maybe. He paused. Maybe she was in one of those cages. He placed the photo on the table. I begged your leaders for help, for answers, for mercy. And they laughed, Lyra finished, whispering. Darren nodded. So I stopped asking. A long silence followed. Finally, Lyra reached for the data. Crystal again. This could destroy the last of my empire, she said. No, he replied. This could help your people face what they've done. They won't listen to me. Then let them listen to the truth. What if they kill me for it? Then they prove everything I showed you. Lyra gripped the crystal tightly. You had every reason to burn us to ash. Yes, Darren said. So why didn't you? His eyes locked on hers. Because if we become monsters to defeat monsters, we lose everything worth saving. That night, Lyra prepared to leave. Darren handed her a small cloak lined with human tech. Heat-shielded, stealth-coated, light, as air. This will keep you hidden, he said. Thank you, she replied. Don't thank me, he said. Just finish what I started. As she turned to leave, he called out one last thing. Lyra, she stopped. If they hurt you, if they bury this truth, I won't send a fleet next time. He didn't smile. He didn't threaten. He simply told the future. I'll come alone. As Lyra stepped into the shadows of her broken world, the data crystal clutched tight in her hand. One thought filled her mind. He had shown mercy, but not weakness. And if her people failed again, they would not survive his return. The Emperor's shame. The imperial palace stood like a dying beast, proud on the outside, hollow within. Its towers still reached for the sky, but its lights were dim, its halls silent. Nobles had vanished. Generals had run. Guards had thrown away their armor. The empire had become a shadow of itself in just days. And now, the shadow was walking toward it, Lyra. Wrapped in a human cloak hidden from scanners and patrols, she moved through secret tunnels beneath the palace. Her steps were fast, her breath sharp. The data crystal in her hand burned like fire. This was no longer fear. This was a mission. At the heart of the palace, the Emperor still sat on his cold throne, silent, still, surrounded by servants too afraid to speak. He had not slept since the human fleet appeared. He had not eaten. His eyes were sunk deep into his skull. Every hour, new reports came. Cities surrendering, stations switching sides, colonies refusing orders, and worst of all, no human demands. There was no ransom, no message, no peace deal, just silence. And it was driving him mad. The chamber doors burst open. Guards raised weapons but froze when they saw her. Lyra, the Emperor's own blood, the girl no one had seen since the first attack. Now she walked like a ghost, but with fire in her eyes. You, the Emperor rasped. You should have fled. I should have, she said, but I didn't. She walked to the throne, slowly, without bowing. You gave us power, she said. You taught us to rule through fear, to see others as lower, to never question. She held out the data crystal. This is what your fear created. What is it? The Emperor asked. The truth. Recorded by the human who warned you too many times. The Emperor stared at the crystal like it was poison. I don't need to see it. Yes, you do. She slammed it into the throne's command port. The room darkened. Holograms rose in the air. Not rumors, not filtered news. Real footage, screams, prisons, burned human towns, alien officers laughing, the cries of children, the slow death of peace, and then Darren's voice. We warned you. You answered with silence. Now the silence is ours. The Emperor sank into his throne. His hands trembled. We did what we had to, he whispered. No, Lyra snapped. You did what you wanted. We had to control them. They were growing. They would have challenged us. They only wanted peace, her voice cracked, and they would have taken everything. We built, no, she said. They could have taken everything, but they didn't. They showed mercy, something we've never understood. The Emperor's face twisted with anger. They will take our crown next. They will sit where I sit. They already could have done that, Lyra shouted. But they didn't. She stepped closer. They don't want to rule us. They want us to wake up. The chamber was silent. Holograms faded, but the screams still echoed in their ears. What should I do? the Emperor asked, not as a ruler, but as a broken man. Lyra looked at him for a long time. Tell the truth. And if I don't? She leaned in. He'll come back. With more ships? No, she said. Just him. Outside the palace, massive human transports had landed, not with guns, with aid, supplies, medicine, food, doctors. They helped the people, even the same ones who once cheered for the war. And still, no celebration. No speeches, only quiet rebuilding, because the war was over, not with fire, but with shame. Later that night, the Emperor gave a message to the entire empire. He stood before a camera, pale and defeated. We have failed, he said. Not because the humans crushed us, Mo, but because they didn't. They showed us something more powerful than war. He took a long breath. They showed us restraint. Across 1,000 worlds, aliens watched with disbelief. But they didn't riot. They didn't scream. Because deep inside, they already knew. They had seen the skies burn. They had felt the silence. They had watched the man who didn't blink, even when he could have destroyed them all. As Lyra watched the Emperor step down from his throne, a message arrived from orbit. A simple signal. No words. Just a symbol. A human star, surrounded by open hands. And she knew. They were watching. They were waiting. And if her people ever slipped again, he would return. When Mercy ends 3 weeks passed, no new attacks came from the humans. No fleets, no bombs, no orders. The Empire waited in silence. Some thought it was over. Others whispered it was just the beginning. Fear had not left. It had only changed shape. It now wore the face of a calm human man, with quiet eyes and deadly patience. His name was Darren Hale, and though he had vanished from sight, his presence remained like a shadow stretched over every star. Lyra now lived among the humans, not as a prisoner, not as a spy, but as something her people had forgotten how to be, a student. She walked through rebuilt zones, watched human engineers repair alien streets, saw doctors treating both sides with no judgment. The humans weren't occupying, they were healing, and yet they never let down their guard. They didn't trust easily anymore, and Lyra understood why. Inside a command post, she stood beside Darren, watching a live report from a far-off system. Her hand trembled as she read the headline. Empire Outpost, refuses to surrender, begins secret weapon production. Darren said nothing. His face did not change, but Lyra had seen that look before. He's giving them one last chance, she thought, the same chance her people were once too blind to take. Later, Lyra stood alone outside the command post. Wind blew across the gray plains. A soft hum of machines echoed around her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "They don't understand what he's holding back." Behind her, a voice answered, "Not yet." She turned. It was Commander Rail, one of Darren's top officers. He stepped beside her. "You've seen what he can do," Rail said, "but what you haven't seen is what he chooses not to do." "They think he's being weak," Lyra said, "and when they find out he's not—" Rail paused. "They won't have time to regret it." Across the galaxy, that final outpost continued to build. They ignored every message, every warning. Their leaders believed Darren would never return, that his mercy was weakness, that humans had softened. They were wrong. One night, without any formal announcement, without any show of force, the stars above their base turned black. Not from a fleet, from a single human vessel, one ship, Darren's ship. It landed without sound. The ground did not shake, but every heart inside the outpost did. Guards surrounded the gates. And still, he walked in alone. No armor, no weapons, just him. "Who do you think you are?" the alien commander shouted, raising his weapon. Darren said nothing. He stepped closer. "You think we fear you? You're one man." Darren stopped in front of the weapon, just inches from its barrel. His eyes were still. His hands were at his side. "You should. he said. The alien pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. His gun melted in his hands. Before he could scream, the lights in the base went dark. Every camera feed, every shield, every signal shut down at once. Darren's voice echoed through every speaker. This was your last chance. You thought mercy meant safety. It meant time. Time to change. You wasted it. What happened next was not war. It was erasure. Every system, every weapon, every hidden project turned to ash. The ground split. The towers collapsed without noise. There were no bodies, no blood, just smoke. And when the light returned, Darren was gone, and the outpost was a hole in the ground. The Empire called it an accident, but they knew. Everyone knew. It was a message, and the message was simple. Mercy is not weakness. Back on Zareth Prime, Lyra stood before a classroom of young aliens and human children. She showed them a flag, half human, half alien, woven together. This, she said, is what peace looks like. A student raised his hand. Will the human return? Lyra smiled softly. He never left. He's just, watching. The boy tilted his head. Watching for what? Lyra looked out the window, into the stars. For the moment, we forget. Because the galaxy will always remember one thing. When a human stops warning, there is no more time left to beg.